Young black boy helps a stranger and receives a life-changing surprise. A chance encounter. Jamal slouched on the worn sofa, eyes glued to the TV, but the flickering images barely registered in his mind. The sounds of laughter and excitement echoed around him, but he felt worlds apart. He could hear his mom in the kitchen, her soft voice mixing with the clattering of pots and pans. The familiar smell of collard greens and cornbread wafted through the air, a comforting reminder of home, yet it did little to lift his spirits. He glanced outside. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement of their neighborhood. The streets were alive with kids playing basketball, their laughter ringing out like a call to a life he longed to join. But for Jamal, it was hard to feel like he belonged. "Jamal, could you help me set the table?" his mother called, pulling him from his thoughts. "Yeah, coming," he replied, forcing himself up. As he shuffled toward the kitchen, he caught sight of the dilapidated buildings lining the street, the peeling paint and broken windows, a constant reminder of the challenges they faced. "Thanks, baby," Miss Williams said, smiling as she handed him a stack of plates. "Dinner will be ready soon." As he arranged the plates on the small table, he thought about school. It was just a few days until summer break, and while his friends were excited about long days free from homework, Jamal felt a twinge of anxiety. He'd done well academically, but in a school where many didn't care, it was hard to stand out. Do you think I'll ever get a scholarship?" he blurted out, the question escaping before he could stop himself. Miss Williams paused, her back to him as she stirred the pot on the stove. "Why do you ask that?" "I don't know, just thinking about high school and what comes next." He shrugged, trying to sound casual. "I mean, you always say education is important." "It is, Jamal," she replied, turning to face him. "But opportunities like that don't come easily. You have to work hard and stay focused." "Yeah, I know." They shared a moment of silence, the weight of their reality hanging between them. Jamal loved his mom more than anything, but sometimes he wished she could see that he was capable of more, that he could change their story. Just then, a knock at the door broke the silence, pulling both of their attention. Miss Williams glanced at Jamal, her brow furrowed. "I'll get it," she said cautiously, wiping her hands on a towel. Jamal watched as she opened the door, revealing a tall man in a crisp navy suit, his posture confident yet approachable. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed and his smile was warm, though it had an intensity that made Jamal's heart race. "Good evening," the man said, his voice smooth and inviting. "I'm Mr. Davis. I live a few houses down." "Oh, hello," Miss Williams said, her demeanor shifting to one of surprise and caution. "What can I do for you?" "I was hoping to speak with your son Jamal. Is he home?" Mr. Davis's gaze drifted to Jamal, who stood frozen in the doorway, unsure of how to react. "Yeah, that's me," Jamal said, his voice a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Great. I wanted to thank you for helping me the other day. Instead, I really appreciate it." He extended his hand toward Jamal. Jamal hesitated before shaking it, feeling a surge of nervous energy. No problem, sir." Mr. Davis's eyes twinkled as he smiled down at Jamal. "I was wondering if you'd like to join me for dinner. I'd love to chat more." "Dinner?" Jamal's heart raced. He glanced at his mom, who looked uncertain. We don't want to impose," Ms. Williams said quickly, her protective instincts kicking in. "Nonsense," Mr. Davis said with a wave of his hand. "It would be my pleasure. I believe in supporting our youth, and I'd love to hear more about your dreams and aspirations, Jamal." Jamal's heart skipped a beat. A chance to talk about his future? It felt like a dream, but his mother's skeptical gaze sent a jolt of doubt through him. "Mom, it's okay," he said, trying to sound confident. "I can handle it." Ms. Williams looked from Jamal to Mr. Davis, her expression torn. "I just don't want you to get into anything you can't handle," she said, her voice softer now. Mr. Davis nodded, his gaze steady. "I assure you, Ms. Williams, I only want to provide an opportunity for Jamal. No strings attached, just a meal and a conversation." After a moment of hesitation, Ms. Williams sighed. "Okay, but let me come along too." "Of course," Mr. Davis said with a gracious smile. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they walked to Mr. Davis's house, Jamal felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. What did this man really want? Was it possible that someone wanted to help him without expecting anything in return? When they arrived, Jamal was struck by the contrast between Mr. Davis's home and his own. The manicured lawn and gleaming windows seemed to shine with a warmth that felt foreign. He could barely believe he was stepping into such an inviting place. Inside, the atmosphere was welcoming. The dining room table was set beautifully, with flickering candles casting a soft glow over the plates. Jamal's stomach growled in anticipation, and he felt a rush of gratitude. "Please make yourselves comfortable," Mr. Davis said, motioning for them to sit. As they settled at the table, the conversation flowed easily. Mr. Davis asked about school, and Jamal found himself opening up, sharing his hopes and dreams. He spoke of wanting to study engineering, how he had always been fascinated by how things worked. "That's a wonderful goal," Mr. Davis said, leaning forward, his eyes shining with interest. "You're a bright young man, Jamal. I believe you have the potential to achieve great things." Jamal's heart swelled at the compliment. "Thanks, but it's not easy. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford college." Ms. Williams, who had been quiet, looked at Jamal with a mixture of pride and concern. "It's true, Mr. Davis. Opportunities like scholarships are rare, especially for kids from our neighborhood." "I understand," Mr. Davis replied, his expression serious. "But I've dedicated my life to helping young people succeed, especially those who face challenges. I'd like to offer Jamal a scholarship to a private high school that prepares students for college." The words hung in the air, and for a moment Jamal felt like the room had tilted. "A scholarship?" he echoed, disbelief washing over him. "Yes," Mr. Davis said, nodding. "I've seen your potential. You deserve a chance to explore it fully." Jamal's thoughts whirled. This was everything he had ever dreamed of, yet a part of him felt wary. "What's the catch?" he blurted out, unable to hold back. "Catch?" Mr. Davis raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. "There's no catch. I want to help you because I believe in your future. All I ask is that you work hard and take advantage of this opportunity." Miss Williams's gaze flickered between Jamal and Mr. Davis, her skepticism evident. "Why would you want to help us?" Mr. Davis took a deep breath. "I grew up in a tough neighborhood too. I know how hard it can be to break free from your circumstances. I want to give back and support kids like Jamal who have the potential to make a difference." Jamal's heart raced. Could this really be happening? But even as hope surged within him, doubt lingered in the back of his mind. He had seen too many broken promises to believe in something this good. "Mom, what do you think?" he asked, turning to her. Miss Williams's expression softened. "It sounds too good to be true, Jamal. People don't just offer scholarships without wanting something in return." "Maybe he just wants to help," Jamal insisted, feeling a spark of frustration. "Don't you see this could change everything for us?" "I know," she said gently, her voice laced with concern. "I just want to protect you. Life has taught us to be cautious." As the conversation continued, Jamal felt his mother's hesitation wrap around him like a heavy blanket. He longed to break free from it, to embrace the hope that Mr. Davis offered. After dinner, Mr. Davis cleared the table while Jamal and Ms. Williams exchanged wary glances. The doubt still lingered in the air, but Jamal could feel something shifting within him, a growing determination to believe in this opportunity. As they walked home under the starlit sky, Jamal felt the weight of the world lifting just a little. He turned to his mother, his heart racing. "Do you think we should take the chance?" Ms. Williams looked up at the stars, her expression contemplative. "Sometimes, the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. But you have to be sure, Jamal, it's your future." "I know," he replied, a sense of clarity washing over him. "But what if this is the break we've been waiting for?" As they approached their home, Jamal felt a flicker of hope ignite in his chest. He knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to take that leap of faith. The stranger's gratitude. The morning sun streamed through the window, spilling light across Jamal's bed. He squinted at the bright rays, feeling the warmth against his skin. But instead of the usual sense of peace, an unsettling excitement churned in his stomach. Today, he would have to decide whether to accept Mr. Davis's offer, a chance at a scholarship, a ticket to a new life, or a step into the unknown. Jamal slid out of bed and quickly dressed, the prospect of a new school year looming in his mind. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. He could already imagine what his first day would be like. The shiny new classroom, the unfamiliar faces, the weight of expectation hanging over him like a storm cloud. As he joined his mother in the kitchen, the familiar aroma of breakfast wafted through the air, pulling him closer to the comforting routine. Miss Williams stood at the stove, flipping pancakes, her movements rhythmic and practiced. "Morning, sweetie," she said, looking up and offering a smile. "How did you sleep?" "Okay, I guess." Jamal hesitated, unsure how to voice the turmoil swirling in his mind. "Did you think more about what Mr. Davis said?" Miss Williams paused, her expression shifting. "I've been thinking about it all night." She turned down the heat and faced him fully. "Jamal, this opportunity is incredible, but it's also a big leap." "I know," he replied, his heart racing. "But what if it's my chance to do something great? What if I could actually get into college and change everything for us?" She finished, her tone gentle yet firm. "I want that for you, but I worry. We've always had to be careful, Jamal. People aren't always what they seem." He sighed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "But you saw how nice Mr. Davis was. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who would lie to us." "I know, honey, but people have agendas. You need to protect yourself." "But it could be different," he insisted, the words tumbling out in a rush. "What if I don't get another chance like this? I want to believe that good things can happen to us." Ms. Williams looked at him, her eyes softening. "I want that too. I just need you to promise me you'll be careful. Don't let your hopes blind you to reality." "Okay, I promise." Jamal sighed, feeling the weight of his mother's concerns settle on his shoulders. "I just wish we could trust someone without worrying." As they finished breakfast, Jamal's thoughts continued to swirl. He knew he had to make a decision, but the pressure felt like a heavy stone in his chest. After breakfast, he grabbed his backpack and headed out the door, ready to face the day, but the uncertainty hung over him like a cloud. The streets were busy with kids rushing to catch the bus. Jamal joined the throng, his heart racing as he caught snippets of conversations about summer adventures and plans for the upcoming school year. He felt like an outsider, lost in a sea of excitement that he couldn't quite share. When he arrived at the bus stop, he found a few friends from his neighborhood, Tariq, Marcus, and Lila, gathered together, laughing and joking. Jamal stood back for a moment, hesitating. He hadn't told them about Mr. Davis's offer, worried they wouldn't understand. They had all grown up together, sharing the same struggles, and the thought of stepping away from that felt daunting. "Hey, Jamal," Lila called, waving him over. You ready for ice? You ready for high school? Heard it's gonna be a blast." "Yeah, sure," he replied, forcing a smile. "It'll be different." "Different? You mean boring." "I can't wait to hang out with all the new kids," Marcus chimed in, bouncing on his heels with excitement. "Maybe," Jamal said, blithe, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. He wanted to share his news to see if they would be excited for him. "I might be going to a new school, actually." "Seriously, what do you mean?" Tariq asked, eyebrows raised. "Mr. Davis offered me a scholarship," Jamal admitted, the words tumbling out before he could catch himself. "Wait, what?" Lila exclaimed, her eyes widening. "That's amazing. What's the catch?" Jamal felt a rush of doubt. "I don't know. I mean, it's a good opportunity, but it's a private school." "Are you kidding? You'd get better resources, better teachers." Tariq leaned in closer, enthusiasm radiating off him. "You've got to take it." "Yeah, but what if I don't fit in?" Jamal felt the familiar pang of insecurity creeping back in. "What if they don't accept me?" "You're smart, Jamal. You'll be fine," Marcus said, clapping him on the back. "You've always been one of the best in our class." "Maybe," Jamal mumbled, glancing away. He could feel their encouragement, but doubt lingered. He wanted to believe he could handle it, that he could step into this new world without losing himself. The bus arrived, and they piled on, the familiar chatter of their friends filling the air. Jamal settled into a seat, trying to shake off his worries. He gazed out the window, watching the familiar streets blur by. Throughout the day, the thought of Mr. Davis's offer lingered in his mind. Each class felt heavier than the last as he wrestled with a decision that could change everything. After school, he returned home to find Miss Williams in the living room, sorting through old bills. The tension in the air was palpable, and Jamal hesitated before speaking up. "Mom, can we talk?" he asked, sinking onto the couch beside her. "Of course, sweetie." She set the bills aside, her attention fully on him. "What's on your mind?" "I spoke to my friends today about Mr. Davis's scholarship," he said, watching her carefully. "They think it's a great opportunity." I hope you're considering it, she replied, her voice steady but cautious. I am, but I keep thinking about how different it would be, Jamal confessed. What if I don't belong there? What if I'm not good enough? Jamal, you've always been good enough, she reassured him, her voice softening. But this new school will be a different environment. It will come with challenges, and you need to be ready for them. I know, he said, feeling the familiar swirl of anxiety creep back in. But I want to try. I want to believe that I can do it. Then believe in yourself, Ms. Williams encouraged, her expression earnest. But remember, you have to be honest about your feelings. If it becomes too much, you need to tell me. I'm here for you. Okay, Jamal replied, his heart swelling with gratitude. I just wish I could be as sure as you are. Trust your instincts, Jamal. They've served you well so far. She paused, her gaze thoughtful. But don't forget the lessons we've learned. It's okay to be cautious, too. As he lay in bed that night, Jamal stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in his mind. The faces of his friends, the warmth of his mother's encouragement, and the looming uncertainty of Mr. Davis's offer filled his thoughts. He wanted to leap forward, to embrace the opportunity that could change their lives. But the fear of the unknown held him back, wrapping around him like a tight knot. Would he really be able to fit into a world that felt so far removed from his own? The next morning, Jamal awoke with a sense of determination. He resolved to speak with Mr. Davis again, to clarify what the scholarship truly meant and to voice his concerns. Maybe, just maybe, he could turn his fears into a conversation that would help him decide. After school, he made his way to Mr. Davis's house. His heart raced as he approached the door, uncertainty creeping in again. What if he found out something he didn't want to hear? What if this whole thing was a mistake? With a deep breath, he knocked. Moments later, Mr. Davis opened the door, a welcoming smile spreading across his face. Jamal, good to see you again. Please, come in. Thanks, Jamal said, stepping inside. The familiar warmth of the house enveloped him, easing some of his nerves. Have a seat. Would you like something to drink? Mr. Davis asked, gesturing toward the living room. No, I'm good, Jamal replied, taking a seat on the couch. Mr. Davis settled across from him, his expression attentive. So how are you feeling about the scholarship? I'm still thinking about it, Jamal admitted, struggling to find the right words. But I'm nervous. I don't know if I'll fit in or if I'm good enough. Mr. Davis nodded, his gaze steady. Those feelings are completely normal, Jamal. Change can be daunting, but I believe you have what it takes to succeed. I've seen your dedication and intelligence. Thanks, Jamal said, a spark of hope igniting within him. But what if I can't keep up with everyone? They might be smarter, more prepared. Everyone has their strengths, Mr. Davis reassured him. You'll bring your unique perspective, and that's valuable. It's not just about grades, it's about effort and resilience. Jamal considered this, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. What if I need help adjusting? What if I don't know how to ask for it? Ask, Mr. Davis said simply. You're not alone. The school has resources, and you'll have support from teachers and peers. It's okay to lean on others. Jamal nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. I guess I just need to know it's really worth it. It absolutely is. Education is a powerful tool. It opens doors you never knew existed, Mr. Davis said, his enthusiasm contagious. You have a bright future ahead of you, Jamal. Don't let fear hold you back from exploring it. The words resonated deep within him, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of belief. Maybe this was the moment he needed to embrace change instead of shying away from it. Okay, Jamal said, his voice steadying. I want to give it a shot. I'll take the scholarship. Mr. Davis smiled widely, his eyes shining with pride. That's the spirit. I knew you had it in you. Let's work together to make sure you have everything you need to succeed. As Jamal left Mr. Davis's house, a sense of relief washed over him. He felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He had made the decision, and now he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He rushed home, eager to share the news with his mother. As he stepped through the door, he found Ms. Williams in the kitchen, humming softly to herself. Mom, Jamal exclaimed, his voice bubbling with excitement. I made my decision. Her head turned, curiosity flickering in her eyes. What did you decide? I'm going to take the scholarship, he announced, a grin spreading across his face. Miss Williams froze for a moment, surprise evident on her face. Then, slowly, a smile broke through. Really? You're sure? Yes, I talked to Mr. Davis, and he said there's support if I need it. I want to give it a try. Her expression softened, and she pulled him into a hug. I'm so proud of you, Jamal. This is a brave step. Thanks, Mom. I hope I can make it work, he said, feeling a rush of hope. You will, she assured him, her voice warm and steady. I believe in you. As they embraced, Jamal felt a spark of determination igniting within him. He was ready for this new adventure. He was ready to take a chance on himself. A leap of faith. The first day of school loomed ahead like a mountain, and Jamal felt the weight of it pressing down on him. After accepting Mr. Davis's scholarship, he had spent the last few days preparing for this moment. New clothes, fresh school supplies, and an anxious heart, all waiting to see how everything would unfold. The night before, he had tossed and turned, his mind racing with thoughts of the unfamiliar hallways, the unknown faces, and the pressure of expectations. In the end, exhaustion had claimed him, but even sleep had not brought him peace. On the morning of the first day, Jamal woke early, the sunlight spilling through the window. He could hear his mother bustling around in the kitchen, the comforting aroma of breakfast wafting through the air. Morning, sweetie, Miss Williams called, her cheerful tone contrasting with Jamal's apprehension. Breakfast is almost ready. Thanks, Mom, he replied, pulling on his new shirt and jeans. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, a reflection that looked ready for the day, yet inside he felt like a bundle of nerves. After breakfast, he took a moment to steady himself before stepping out the door. His heart raced as he walked to the bus stop, each step feeling heavier than the last. What if he didn't fit in? What if everyone was smarter or more talented? When the bus arrived, he climbed aboard, scanning the rows for familiar faces. Most of his old friends were in different classes, and the few he recognized were seated with others, laughing and chatting. He found a seat near the back and sat down, trying to blend into the fabric of the bus. The ride felt long, with the familiar streets morphing into a blur of color and sound. The excitement of his classmates filled the air, yet Jamal's stomach twisted tighter with each passing moment. He was heading into a world that felt both promising and terrifying. As the bus pulled up to the school, Jamal's heart skipped a beat. The building loomed ahead, an imposing structure that seemed to tower over him. He stepped off the bus, squinting up at the vastness of it all. Here goes nothing, he muttered to himself, taking a deep breath before walking toward the entrance. The halls were bustling with students, a mix of laughter, chatter, and the occasional shout echoing off the walls. Jamal stood just inside the door, overwhelmed by the sights and sounds. The noise was dizzying, and for a moment he felt rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the whirlwind of unfamiliarity. Hey, you good? A voice broke through his thoughts. Jamal turned to see a girl with curly hair and bright eyes approaching him. You look lost. I am, Jamal admitted, forcing a smile. It's my first day. Welcome to Smith High. I'm Ava, she said, extending her hand. I'll show you around if you want. Thanks, I'm Jamal. He shook her hand, grateful for the kindness. Ava led him through the hallways, pointing out classrooms, the cafeteria, and the library. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Jamal found himself relaxing slightly as they chatted. What's your favorite subject? She asked. Math, I guess, he replied, recalling the thrill he felt when he solved a difficult problem. I like how everything has a solution. Nice! I'm more of a science person, but I respect math. It's like solving puzzles, she said, her smile brightening. As they walked, Jamal couldn't help but notice how easily she interacted with others. Students waved at her and called her name, and he felt a pang of envy. Would he ever feel that comfortable here? They reached the cafeteria, and Jamal hesitated at the entrance, feeling a rush of anxiety wash over him. The noise inside was deafening, and the long lines of students seemed daunting. Want to sit with us? Ava offered, sensing his hesitation. My friends are at that table. Jamal glanced over at the table she pointed to, where a group of students sat laughing and eating. They looked inviting, but a seed of self-doubt took root in his mind. Maybe later, he said, trying to mask his nerves. Okay, but don't be a stranger. Ava smiled, squeezing his arm reassuringly before heading off to join her friends. Jamal stood at the entrance, feeling a sense of loss wash over him as he watched her walk away. He took a deep breath and stepped inside, scanning the cafeteria for an empty table. Finding one tucked away in a corner, he settled in, pulling out his lunch and trying to focus on the chatter around him. As he ate, the weight of expectation pressed down on him. He was here for a reason. He had a scholarship, an opportunity. But the fear of failure clawed at him, whispering doubts in his ear. "Hey, is this seat taken?" A voice broke into his thoughts. Jamal looked up to see a tall boy with tousled hair standing beside his table. No, he stammered, motioning to the seat. The boy grinned as he sat down. "I'm Ryan. You're new, right?" "Yeah, just started today," Jamal replied, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. "Cool. Welcome. You picked a good school. Just keep an eye out for the math teacher. He's a real stickler for rules," Ryan said, laughing. "But the science classes? Totally worth it." Jamal smiled, grateful for the friendly face. "Thanks. I'm actually kind of nervous about math. It's my favorite subject, but I want to do well." "Don't sweat it. Everyone's a little anxious at first. Just remember, you're not alone. We all help each other out," Ryan reassured him. As they chatted, Jamal felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he could find his place here after all. The lunch bell rang, and students began to rise from their seats, the chaos of the cafeteria ebbing into a rhythm. "I'll see you around, Jamal," Ryan called as he headed toward the exit. "Let's hang out after school." "Yeah, for sure," Jamal replied, a genuine smile breaking through his earlier worries. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes, each one filled with new faces and challenges. Jamal found himself immersed in the lessons, eager to prove himself. By the time the final bell rang, he felt a sense of accomplishment. As he walked out of the school building, the sun setting on the horizon, he spotted Ryan waiting by the entrance with Ava. They waved him over, their friendly faces a beacon of encouragement. "Ready to check out the park?" Ryan asked, bouncing on his heels. "Yeah, let's go," Jamal replied, excitement bubbling inside him. They made their way to the nearby park, where students gathered to hang out after school. Jamal felt a sense of belonging wash over him as he joined in on their conversations, laughing and sharing stories. The tension that had gripped him earlier slowly began to fade, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. As they sat on the grass, the warmth of the sun lingering in the air, Jamal felt grateful for this moment. He could see himself building friendships, finding a place among these kids who were welcoming him without reservation. "Hey, Jamal, do you play sports?" Ava asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "A little basketball," he admitted, "but I'm not that great." "Let's hit the courts this weekend. We'll show you some moves," Ryan suggested, grinning. "Sounds awesome." "I'd like that," Jamal replied, the prospect of spending time with new friends filling him with joy. As they laughed and joked, Jamal realized that he was beginning to feel at home. The worries that had plagued him earlier began to dissipate. Maybe he could do this after all. That evening, Jamal returned home, his heart lighter than it had been in days. Miss Williams was waiting for him in the kitchen, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "How was your first day?" she asked, setting aside a pot she had been stirring. "It was good, Mom. I met some nice people, and I think I'm going to like it here," Jamal replied, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "That's wonderful to hear," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "Did you feel comfortable?" "Yeah, it was a little overwhelming at first, but then I started to relax," he admitted. "I even made a couple of friends." "I'm so proud of you, Jamal. I knew you could do it," she said, wrapping him in a warm embrace. "Thanks, Mom," he said, feeling grateful for her support. "I really think this is going to be a good change." Later that night, as he lay in bed, Jamal reflected on the day's events. He felt a spark of hope igniting within him. Maybe this new school was more than just a chance. It was the beginning of a journey toward who he wanted to be. He closed his eyes, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow would bring, knowing that he had taken the first leap of faith into a future filled with possibilities, the life-changing offer. Jamal could barely sleep that night. After they returned home from Mr. Davis's house, the weight of the offer had settled in like a heavy blanket. He tossed and turned, thinking about everything that had happened, everything that had been said. His mind replayed the evening over and over. Mr. Davis's kind words, the way his mother had hesitated, and most of all, the possibility of what this offer could mean for them. A scholarship. The thought alone was enough to send Jamal's heart racing. It wasn't just about money. It was about a future he had always dreamed of, but never truly believed was within his reach. He had always been a good student, despite the challenges he faced at home, but opportunities like this didn't come to kids like him. Not from his neighborhood, not with his family's history. But there was also his mother's doubt. She had barely spoken since they left Mr. Davis's house. Jamal knew she was thinking about the offer, weighing the risks and trying to decide if this was something they could trust. He understood why she was cautious. Life had been hard on them, and they had learned that nothing came without strings attached. The next morning, the tension was palpable. Jamal and his mother sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the silence heavy between them. Jamal poked at his cereal, too nervous to eat, while Mrs. Williams sipped her coffee, her eyes distant as she stared out the window. "Mom," Jamal finally said, breaking the quiet, "what are you thinking?" Miss Williams set her coffee cup down and looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I'm thinking that we've been through this kind of thing before," she said slowly. "People make promises, and they don't always follow through. I don't want us to get hurt again." "I know," Jamal replied, his voice soft. "But Mr. Davis, he seems different. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just wants to help us." His mother sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I want to believe that, Jamal. I really do. But life has taught me that things are never as simple as they seem, and people like us, we can't afford to be naive." Jamal nodded, understanding her hesitation. He had seen the same patterns growing up. People who claimed they wanted to help but disappeared when things got hard, or who only offered help on their terms, expecting something in return. His mother had always been his protector, shielding him from disappointment as best she could. But Jamal also felt something different this time, a glimmer of hope that he hadn't felt before. "What if he really means it, though?" Jamal asked cautiously. "What if this is our chance?" Ms. Williams was quiet for a long moment. She stared at him, her eyes searching his face, as if trying to read the depth of his belief. Finally, she sighed again, but this time it was softer, less guarded. "I want to believe that, Jamal," she said, her voice quieter now. "I want to believe that this could be the break we've been praying for. But it's hard. I've spent my whole life protecting us from disappointment, from getting our hopes up only to have them crushed, and I just don't want to see you hurt." Jamal swallowed hard, feeling the emotions swell in his chest. "I know, Mom, but maybe this time, maybe we need to take the risk." Later that afternoon, Jamal sat in his room, staring at the business card Mr. Davis had given him. He knew that if they were going to move forward, the decision would have to be his mother's. But a part of him also knew that he couldn't let fear hold them back. Not this time. Just as he was about to put the card back in his drawer, there was a knock at his door. His mother stepped in, looking tired but resolved. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning against the doorframe, "about what you said, about taking the risk." Jamal sat up, his heart pounding. "And," Miss Williams took a deep breath, "I think maybe you're right. Maybe we do need to take the chance. I've spent so long being afraid of what could go wrong that I've forgotten what it's like to hope for what could go right." Jamal felt a rush of relief wash over him, but his mother wasn't finished. "But," she added firmly, "we need to be smart about this. I'm not saying we jump in with both feet without looking. We're going to be cautious, and we're going to make sure this is real before we trust anything." Jamal nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mom, I understand." Miss Williams nodded, her expression softening just slightly. "We'll call Mr. Davis tomorrow and talk to him about the details. But I want you to know, Jamal, I'm proud of you, for believing in this and for pushing me to consider it. You're growing up, and you're right, we can't let fear hold us back forever." Jamal felt a lump form in his throat. "Thanks, Mom." The next day, Jamal and his mother sat together in the living room as she dialed Mr. Davis's number. Jamal watched her closely, his nerves on edge as he waited for the call to connect. When Mr. Davis answered, his voice warm and welcoming, Miss Williams got straight to the point. "Mr. Davis, this is Jamal's mother," she began, her tone steady but cautious. "We've been thinking about your offer, and we'd like to discuss it further." Mr. Davis seemed genuinely pleased. "Of course, Miss Williams, I'm glad you reached out. I want you to know that my offer stands. No strings attached. I'm here to help however I can." Miss Williams nodded, though Mr. Davis couldn't see her. I appreciate that, Mr. Davis, but I need to make sure that we understand exactly what you're offering and that this is something we can trust. I completely understand, Mr. Davis replied. I would be happy to meet with you again, go over everything in detail, and answer any questions you have. My intention is simply to provide opportunities for Jamal and for you. I've seen the potential in both of you, and I want to help you achieve what you deserve. Ms. Williams exchanged a glance with Jamal, who gave her a small, hopeful smile. After a moment's hesitation, she sighed. Okay, let's meet again. I want to make sure this is right for us. A few days later, they met Mr. Davis at a local cafe, a neutral setting that felt more comfortable than his grand home. This time, the conversation was more focused and practical. Mr. Davis laid out his plan clearly. He would help Miss Williams secure a better job within his company, and he would cover Jamal's education expenses, starting with a scholarship to a private high school that would prepare him for college. There were no catches, no hidden agendas. It was simply an opportunity. As Miss Williams listened, her skepticism slowly began to fade. She asked questions, many of them, and Mr. Davis answered each one patiently and thoroughly. By the end of the meeting, Miss Williams looked at her son, a mix of disbelief and cautious optimism in her eyes. When they left the cafe, walking side by side, Jamal could feel the tension in the air slowly dissipating. His mother was quiet for a long time, deep in thought. Finally, she stopped and turned to him. Well, she said softly, I think we might have found our chance, after all. Jamal felt a smile spread across his face, the weight of uncertainty lifting for the first time in a long while. A new beginning. Jamal stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his new uniform one last time. The crisp white shirt and navy blue blazer felt foreign against his skin, but he tried to embrace the change. He could hardly recognize the boy staring back at him. A boy who was about to step into a world that had once seemed unreachable. Are you ready, Jamal? Ms. Williams called from the kitchen, her voice a mixture of encouragement and concern. Yeah, I'm coming, he replied, his heart racing. Today was the day he would start at Smith High, the school that promised new opportunities and challenges. It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream he had longed for. As he walked into the kitchen, he found his mother putting the finishing touches on a packed lunch. I made your favorite, she said with a smile, revealing a container of homemade chicken salad. You'll need your energy. Thanks, Mom, he said, his nervousness easing slightly at her warmth. They shared a quiet moment, both aware of the significance of the day. You're gonna do great, Jamal, Ms. Williams assured him, her eyes shining with pride. Just be yourself, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I will, he replied, though doubt still lingered at the edges of his mind. He grabbed his lunch and took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. When they arrived at Smith High, Jamal's excitement mingled with apprehension. The school loomed large before him, its brick walls standing as a symbol of opportunity. As he stepped out of the car, he felt the weight of his decision. This was a new beginning. Go on, I'll be right here if you need me, Miss Williams said, giving him a gentle push toward the entrance. Jamal walked toward the gates, his heart pounding. He could see groups of students chatting and laughing, their voices blending into a chorus of confidence. He hesitated, watching them from a distance, feeling like an outsider in this polished world. Taking a deep breath, he stepped through the gates, committing to this new chapter. As he walked through the halls, everything felt overwhelming. The bright colors, the laughter, the chatter. It was a stark contrast to the crowded, underfunded school he had attended before. Hey, you must be the new kid, a voice called out, breaking through his reverie. A tall girl with curly hair approached him, her smile warm and inviting. I'm Mia. Welcome to Smith High. Thanks, Jamal replied, his surprise at her friendliness easing his anxiety a little. I'm Jamal. Mia nodded, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. You'll love it here. Let me show you around. As they walked through the school, Mia pointed out important places, the cafeteria, the gym, and the library. Jamal felt a sense of relief wash over him. Maybe he wouldn't be as lost as he feared. Everyone is really nice once you get to know them, Mia said, chatting easily as they walked. Just give it some time, and you'll fit right in. Jamal found himself laughing at her jokes, the tension in his shoulders easing. For the first time that day, he felt like he might belong. The bell rang, signaling the start of the first period. Jamal's heart raced again, but this time it was mixed with anticipation. "Good luck in class," Mia said with a grin as they parted ways. Entering the classroom, Jamal scanned the room, searching for a familiar face. He spotted an empty seat at the back and made his way over, hoping to blend into the background. As he settled in, he noticed the teacher, Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged man with a friendly demeanor. "Welcome, everyone. We have a new student today," Mr. Thompson announced, and all eyes turned to Jamal. "Why don't you introduce yourself?" the teacher encouraged. Jamal felt heat rush to his cheeks. Hi, I'm Jamal. I just transferred here," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Great to have you, Jamal. I'm sure you'll enjoy it here," Mr. Thompson said, smiling. "Now let's get started." As the lesson unfolded, Jamal focused intently, trying to absorb everything. The discussions were lively, and he found himself raising his hand to contribute, surprising even himself. Each time he spoke, he felt a little more confident, a little more connected. By lunchtime, Jamal was feeling more at ease. He joined Mia and a few others at a table in the cafeteria. As they chatted and shared stories, Jamal felt a growing sense of belonging. The laughter, the camaraderie, it was everything he had hoped for and more. But as the day wore on, a shadow crept in. During math class, he noticed a group of students whispering and glancing in his direction. He tried to ignore it, but their laughter echoed in his mind, and the nagging voice of doubt resurfaced. "You don't belong here. They're judging you." After school, Jamal found a quiet corner in the library to gather his thoughts. The tall shelves of books surrounded him, a comforting presence. He remembered his mother's words, "You've worked hard to get here, and you deserve this chance." But as he sat there, uncertainty washed over him. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he couldn't keep up with the expectations of this new world? Suddenly, he noticed a familiar figure entering the library. It was Mia, her backpack slung casually over her shoulder. "Jamal," she called, her voice bright. "Mind if I join you?" "Sure," he replied, forcing a smile as she settled into the seat beside him. "You're doing great today," Mia said, leaning back in her chair. "I saw you speaking up in class. Not everyone does that on their first day." Jamal shrugged, trying to downplay it. "Just trying to keep up." "Don't sell yourself short," she said earnestly. "You're smart, and you clearly belong here. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Her words struck a chord, igniting a flicker of hope within him. "Thanks, Mia. I guess I'm just still getting used to everything." "I get that. But remember, everyone has their insecurities. Even the kids who seem super confident," she said, her expression softening. "It takes time, Hank, but you'll find your place." As they continued to talk, Jamal felt his worries begin to fade. Maybe he could fit in after all. He shared more about his life, his dreams, and his fears. And Mia listened intently, offering support without judgment. After their conversation, Jamal left the library feeling lighter. The whispers of doubt were still there, but they no longer held the same power over him. As he walked home that day, he reflected on his journey, the sacrifices he and his mother had made, the opportunity he now had, and the friendships he was beginning to build. Later that evening, as he sat at the dinner table with Ms. Williams, he couldn't help but share his day. "I think it went well," he said, his voice laced with cautious optimism. "I made a friend, and I actually spoke up in class." Ms. Williams beamed at him. "That's wonderful, Jamal. I knew you could do it. How did it feel?" "It felt good, I guess. But there were some kids who were whispering and laughing. I don't know if they were talking about me or not," he admitted, his smile faltering. "Don't let them get to you," Ms. Williams replied, her tone serious. "You're there to learn and grow. Those who matter will see your worth." "I know," Jamal said, though the insecurity lingered. "It's just hard sometimes." "Life will always have challenges, but remember that you're stronger than you think," she said. "You've already overcome so much." As he lay in bed that night, Jamal thought about everything he had experienced. The day had been a mix of highs and lows, but he felt a growing determination. He was ready to embrace this new chapter, to tackle the challenges that lay ahead. The next morning, he stood before the mirror again, this time with a sense of purpose. He smoothed down his blazer and adjusted his tie, looking more confident than before. Today would be different. He was ready to face whatever came his way. Arriving at school, Jamal felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but he pushed through it. He greeted Mia in the hallway, who smiled brightly at him. Ready for another day? She asked. Absolutely, he replied, surprising himself with the enthusiasm in his voice. As the day progressed, he faced small challenges, answering questions in class, engaging in group discussions, and even standing up to a classmate who made a snide remark about his uniform. Each moment added to his confidence, reinforcing the belief that he could succeed in this new environment. At the end of the week, Jamal received an email from Mr. Davis inviting him to the office for a brief meeting. His heart raced at the thought of talking to his mentor again. What would he say? Would he still be proud of him after this week? Walking into the office, Jamal found Mr. Davis sitting behind his desk, a smile on his face. Jamal, great to see you. How has your first week been? It's been challenging but good, Jamal replied, his voice steadying. I made a friend, and I'm starting to feel more comfortable. Good to hear. I knew you had it in you, Mr. Davis said, leaning forward with interest. You're adapting well, and that's a key skill for success. Jamal felt a swell of pride. Thanks, Mr. Davis. I'm really excited about the internship, too. I believe you'll do exceptionally well. Just remember to stay open to learning, he encouraged. And if you ever feel overwhelmed, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you. I will, Jamal promised, feeling a surge of determination. As he left the office, Jamal felt like a different person. He had faced his fears, made new friends, and found a sense of belonging that he had long sought. This was only the beginning of his journey, and he was ready to embrace every challenge that lay ahead. That evening, he sat down with his mother, sharing stories from his week. I stood up for myself today, Mom. It felt good, he said, his face lighting up. I'm so proud of you, Jamal, Ms. Williams replied, her eyes brimming with love. You're growing into a remarkable young man. Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you, he said, feeling gratitude wash over him. As they shared a quiet moment, Jamal realized that this was just the start. He had a long way to go, but he felt equipped to handle it. He was ready for this new beginning, ready to learn, to grow, and to make his mark on the world. If you found this story impactful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that tackles important issues and promotes positive change. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that matter. Thanks for watching.